Well, a bit of a complaint come in from Damien Penny, who basically says the intro music is driving him nuts. Well, you and me both, so it's going. Now, for any new viewers, we're already on episode 20 of my DIY barn build, all of it attempted for the first time, with the major highlights being a massive excavation on a sloping block containing big tree stumps, making a cock-up of digging the trenches, making an even bigger cock-up of filling them with concrete, building the levels up and laying a slab, and then 18 months of stonework, including the epic episode 19 where I built the arch. So we're finished with stone, and now I need to learn the ancient art of oak framing. I've got a van. I've hired a van, half day. So I've got 3 hours to drive an hour, get the wood, drive an hour back, unload, return the van. Doable. Here we go. Ken Bruce's last show today. Popmaster. Popmaster. Here we go, Venables Oak, Market Drayton. Well, this is a new one on me, being in a wood yard like this. Trying to spot mine in here. That's my load. Should fit in the van actually. Awesome. Okay, now this is when the sheer size of this stuff starts to get a bit worrying. See what he's doing. I think he's going to lift it on the tail. Put it down. Nicely done. Slide them in a couple at a time. There we go. Got that purling in on the diagonal. So that means I can shut the doors, which is good. Not going to lie to you, that was quite stressful. God, we won't be lifting these bits of wood without a telehandler, I'll tell you that. They're bloody enormous. Doable. So, by anyone's standards, this was quite a stressful situation. First of all, wasn't caught on camera. The guy at the wood yard said to me, "Are you seriously trying to put this wood in that van? That's not what you want to hear." Secondly, I was massively freaked out by the weight of the wood. I mean, I know what big bits of wood kind of weigh, what they feel like. I think I was thinking of pine. This green oak is like on another standard. And then just to really make it stressful, as you've heard, I decided to save 50 quid and only give myself 3 hours to go and get it and unload it. So what you're going to see now is basically me unloading the wood in a massive hurry. I think this sequence does a good job of showing you just how heavy these bits of wood are. All I'm trying to do here is slide this out the van, and it's sloping downhill away from the house. I'm just going to push this off down here. Good. So it can't fall on anyone. Now, you might remember ages ago I did a map of where the viewers are, and the reason why I stopped it is I just forgot to do it in the next episode. Well, the reason why I'm bringing it back is because Troy Boy, he's in Doncaster, as he'd say it, asked to bring it back. So you know what, Troy? You're on. So Doncaster, I've looked it up, is between Leeds and Sheffield, just slightly to the east. So the map's back. So if you leave me a comment, make sure you tell me where you're from. You might get on the map. Of course, the next question was, can I actually lift these with the Avant? I originally bought the Avant to lift the trench blocks and make life easier, but what is clear is there's no way I could have done this job without it. This first bit, by the way, is just one of the purlins, so basically one of the light ones. Here's the real test. That's excellent. The Avant has come into its own again. That's about the sweet spot for that machine actually, this sort of stuff. Definitely nothing heavier though. Ready to work on that. You might have noticed I stacked them 3 high. I just didn't like it. Felt a bit wobbly, didn't want stuff falling over, so I've gone with 2. So tomorrow I might start a bit of woodworking. So this is the last up-to-date design that I did that's got the thing, you know, with the skin on it, the sides if you like, and you know, as you can see from it, we haven't exactly in terms of proportion built a huge amount, but you can see what we have built. This area here, we've got the stone wall going around the back, so all of this other stuff is going to potentially be wood panelled, bit of glass, bit of window, and maybe some stone at the end. We'll come back to that, but let's have a look at the frame that's going on underneath. So this is a serious bit of wood. Now I haven't actually got a design that's got every piece of wood in it. The reason why is I've changed it halfway through. I just didn't want to have to draw every single piece of wood. So where you see a piece of wood here, where the cursor is, obviously there's one on the other side as well. It just isn't there. Also ignore the yellow, that's pine, those are rafters. They'll come in later on. So we've got the arch, and then matching the arch, and I'll come on to this in a second, you've got a raised collared truss. That'll be covered in terms of a description. You've then got a conventional truss behind that, and then in the annex section we have got 3 trusses up here and a kind of, well, a slightly more conventional oak frame, and then that stitches in. And you may notice, let's get the angle here, is that if you take the ridge of this one, the ridge of the annex is actually lower than the annex to the main barn. Originally I actually had the width of this all the way out and they're all the same height, but I just felt it looked better to have a lower, smaller annex, even if that means putting 2 of the feet onto the slab, but I think it'll be okay in terms of weight. Well, I had an absolute brainwave in the bath this morning. See where those notches are in the stone? Well, that's where the purlins are going to go through, left and right, and there's a purlin at the top where I've left that dummy purlin in, just that bit of wood. And the thing is, I've got to find those spaces, if you like. It's got to be exactly the same in my collared truss. It's going to be made out of that. The thing is though, if they're not all lined up, we're going to have purlins jutting off at different angles, and it's not going to meet up with the trusses at the very back sitting on the, see that tiny wall at the back through the arch where the Avant and the bucket is? Well, there's got to be something on top of that. I've been thinking about making a kind of dummy truss just out of, like, you know, normal sort of pine or whatever, 2x4 or whatever, and that's great. But the breakthrough I had is, well, how am I going to get it to line up? So the thing is what I can do is I can make one of these, but I can make it like in front of this stonework, so it's going to exactly match up, and then I can move it behind, test it, and then cut the oak about it. All right, that's not making sense. You're going to see in a second. I'm basically going to make a dummy truss in front of this stone. Watch this. This is possibly better explained from the back, okay? So my collar truss is going to sit on this, okay? This is the first height we've got here, okay? And it's going to go up, and as I said, it's got to kind of match the angles, it's got to match where the purlins are, whatever height they're at, and it will sit on here. So I'm going to create this dummy one, basically out of pieces of wood, like this, so I can get it. But rather than build the dummy one sitting on here, I'm going to build a dummy one in front of the arch, so I can make sure it's exactly the right thing, exactly the right height. Okay, so this is at 206. There's a 212 on the other side. I didn't think the difference was that much. Right, I'll show you those dimensions, but just to recap on what we're building, this is called a raised collar truss, which is harder to say than you might imagine. And the reason why it's different to a normal truss is that this horizontal sits higher up, okay? It's like a sort of capital A. The reason for that is that when you go into the entrance of the barn, you look in, although you can see it there, If it was going kind of like straight across, it would be more at this height. So what's the point of having an arch? Okay. So I've just, standing around the back, what I've just done is I've just taken a measurement of what this height is supposed to be, and it's supposed to be 2.1 meters. In fact, it's 2.6, and on the other side it's 2 meters 12. So this is 2 centimeters over, this is 4 centimeters under. Not a problem, but good to know. This is good news. I've put a string line in. Now I'm going to zoom in here. Now the string line, I hope you can see, is coming off the bottom of that dummy purlin. Okay, and if you follow it down, it goes over where that purlin is and goes down to a chalk line here. Now that chalk line there is at 2 meters 12, and if we follow it back up and then down again, it goes to a chalk line on this side, 2 meters 6. Now let's just look at this side. Now the string line cuts across this hole here, the hole I've done for the purlin. If we move across here, it's the same. It cuts across it by 1 inch. Okay, promise, last look at the design. So this string is actually representing the top edge of this diagonal here. And this diagonal here should meet the purlin, which means that the string line should be on the bottom of the hole that I've left for the purlin, but it's just a tiny bit high. Now, if it is a tiny bit high, that's fine, because as you can see, we will recess the purlin a little bit, but it is just a tiny bit too high because of the way I did the stone work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a bit of wood, drop this down a little bit so that we're actually cutting not to this point here, but just a tiny bit lower. We can then adjust the height of this top purlin by increasing the height of the king post. Make sense? Well, I'll tell you who you wouldn't see walking like that. It's got to be Root, and he is in El Paso in Texas. He tells me that in episode 15 I was working on his birthday. Well, happy belated birthday to you. But the most exciting news I have to share is that I've put a scaffold up, and as you can see, I've started to get this truss template in position, and that's why I'm starting to think about the king post. So what I've created here is a template for a king post. Doesn't matter about the length at the minute, we'll do that later on, but the important bit, if I can just point, is this bit here. That is what the top purlin is going to sit on, and the struts, or whatever they're called, are going to brace up against that. So I really need to know the exact height of that point relative to the truss. So there it is. We've got the kind of dummy trussing. Oh, by the way, the one thing that's not right, obviously, is like that cross beam, if you see what I mean, the tie beam. I know it's at a funny angle, that's just meant to hold it in place for the time being. But I've definitely got all the heights. I've got everything central. So that is what I basically need to build. So the next step is actually just to get that down, and then start to cut this little lot into shape. I'm not quite as daunted by the size of it now I've seen it, because of course it's a lot smaller than the stone arch. I mean, again, it's going to take a massive telehandler to get it up there, but I'm not quite as freaked out about that type of weight that high. So I'm in that really nice place at the minute, basically where I haven't started. I've got to turn that into that. And the reason why it's such a nice place is because I just haven't discovered yet exactly how hard this is going to be. It all seems so easy. Bit of chopping, circular sawing, bit of routing, fine. Here we go. How long? 3.5. It's the shortest point. Let's measure that. .972. Don't know how well you can see that. So there's the ultimate length of it. This is where we'll kind of, if you like, cut up at an angle. There's the top part to that angle there. And there, quite hard to see in pencil. Yeah, you can just see it. That's going to be my mortise. Right, we're going to make the historic first cut. But basically, I want to deal with this top section, so there's a notch going in. So this section here, this triangle, if I can cut this out, that means I can start to attack it from this side, I think. Anyway, I think I know what I mean. Okay, so basically the problem I've got is that I want to cut in at this angle, but my circular saw only goes to 45 degrees, but not the right way. So I actually need to cut an angle of 48.3, it's on that more acute one. So what I've got to do is, I've got a guide here for my circular saw, but I'm going to use a bit of wood here to slightly tilt the saw, and therefore it lifts it from 45 up to 48.3. In other words, getting to that 41. So we've come in, the angle's good, but it has come a little bit low. It's really the thickness of the blades a problem. You can see all the way across, we're just on the inside. And then on this side you can see we actually, as a result, come a tiny bit low. I think part of the problem is just the tolerances. Look, if I put the set square on this angle here, you can see we are pretty much plumb. And so if I do it against this side here, you know, you can see that we're not, and that's kind of what's causing this actually. Not quite sure what to do about that, if I'll be honest. Right, and there we go. That's our first section of wood removed. Now, one of the big objectives is going to be about saving time. Here we are slightly speeded up, and the way I've got the bit of oak is that it's sitting on a load of these trench blocks, so every time I have to turn the wood round, I have to get the Avant, do this, bring it up, and then come round, walk round and push it over. And of course you have to continually keep rotating it, so this is something we'll address later on. Okay, my next plan is to take a section all the way off the top. I mean, basically, you know, the tenon is going to come out like this and then angle like that. I haven't measured that up yet, but the point is, where you've got this line here, this line will now carry on horizontally out here beyond some waist. So I've now got to think about the width of the tenon, and the width of the tenon is 130mm in the middle, which basically means I've got a 60mm drop, which, as it happens, is the plunge depth of the circular saw. Not entirely a coincidence. So I'm going to cut down all the way across there, and then I'll have to flip it round again, or flip it twice, do the same thing, and then cut in and get the middle section out. So again, quite a bit of work just to get this bit out. Right, I mean, this is not strictly speaking what I'm aiming for, because this, and this, that all needs to come out. But now I can start to work that out, I think. So when you're trying to take out big sections of facing wood, the technique, or as I've seen in other videos, is that you set your plunge depth to whatever you need. In this case, I think it's about 20 mil, and then you just put cuts through it, one next to the other, as close together as you can bear to do, and then it leaves you thin bits of wood that you can basically then bash out. Yeah, that's very satisfying. Great, really good. Right, let's carry on with that. I'm definitely doing the right thing by being cautious. I think I made a bit of a meal of that, all these different sections. At the end of the day, I was just trying to take a slice off the top. Similar with this. I mean, to get to the tenon, I just need to take 60 mil all the way over here. And it was so quick when I cut through into those slices, just to knock the slices out. I'm just thinking I'm just going to go with that this time and just work my way down. So I'll give that a go. Right, so there we go, that's that first side done. Got that pretty smooth. I mean, it doesn't obviously need to be beautifully done, it won't be seen, but it does need to be flat. Now, I'll just move this mallet. There is a sort of small potential issue here, in that this line is deeper than the line that goes all the way through. Voila! There we go. Yeah. Beauty. Yeah, that really is bloody heavy. That falling on my foot. Well, that's probably 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos, but such dense wood.
I might keep that as an Alex Build souvenir. Bit of mad art. Great. Very good. So quick recap. Did the first tenon last week, pretty successful. Only issue is it took a very long time, nearly all of Saturday and a bit of Sunday. I can't be working at that rate. So, first huge time saver is I have realised that this Makita circular saw is of no use. The batteries go down too quick. I thought the batteries had good life, but when you start plunging in at like 6.5 centimetres and doing like 40 cuts, no good. And I think one of my batteries got a fault. So I have upgraded to, look at the difference in size, a bigger but more importantly a mains powered Makita circular saw, and it's got three things. So first of all, yeah, as I say, it runs off the mains. First one I ordered, I accidentally bought 110 volt, I had to change it. But the key thing is it's got a bigger blade, so a bigger plunge depth. Useful, but not essential. The other one was okay. But the good thing about having the bigger plunge depth is, let's see if you can see this, it cuts up to a 50-degree angle. Now that's critical because when I'm plunging in and doing these tenons on the end down here, on the side, I need to go to 48.2 degrees, 48 degrees. And on the other one, you might remember, I can only go to 45, so I had to sort of prop it up on a bit of wood. But I don't need to do that anymore, so that will save time as well.
So there you are, folks. That's it. That's your lot. I can't believe I'm putting a video out that only goes this far. So I'm still working on this as I'm recording these words, and it's only now I've started to edit the footage I've realised just how much work's gone into this, and like creating the dummy one and collecting the wood. Originally I thought there would be one video covering the raised collar truss. So in fact you've got this one. The next one should cover, I think, all of the construction. I've still not finished. And then there'll be one which will be installing it. But the good news is I'm working a bit quicker, and also by cutting these videos it means I can get the episodes out a bit more frequently, so there's definitely going to be episodes once a month for the next few months. Talking of which, in episode 22, which is coming out in June 2023, there'll be the usual mix of capers, problems, but I'm pleased to say new skills and a bit of problem solving along the way. In the last few weeks, I have to say the channel has kind of taken off a little bit. It's really satisfying, and I hugely appreciate all the likes and the amount of people who subscribed, and of course the comments. I always try and reply. Thanks for watching. See you next time.